Alright, welcome back. Here we are going right through the middle stretch of games. Thanks for everybody watching, and thanks for all your positive feedback and comments. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Number 30. This game that's already shown up on someone else's list, shown up on Brian's list, and it is Ghost Stories by Antoine Bauza. And Ghost Stories, just to give the brief synopsis of that, you are all different monks trying to protect a village that's been infested by a bunch of ghosts. So the board is divvied up into these different tiles. There'll be 9 tiles that represent the different sections of the village that are going to get invaded by these ghosts, and each of the monks controls a certain side that they approach from, and a different color that they have a special ability that comes in. So there's a green monk, yellow monk, a blue monk, and a red monk that all have unique abilities, and that they all use to fight these different kinds of ghosts. And of course, like a lot of good cooperative games, they'll have you do your good action, or rather your bad action and then your good action. So the first thing you do, obviously, is you add the ghosts in, and then you have to clean it up. And eventually, if you can get through all of the ghosts by combining them or taking care of them in other ways, you will eventually get to Wu Fang, the big baddie, and if you can defeat him, which he's always random every game, then you win, and you get a certain number of points depending on how well you did. So that's kind of nice. So I like Ghost Stories because it's a cooperative game, and it's real puzzly, and really I would say there's never really an alpha gamer problem. There's nobody trying to take ahead of that. Everybody's working collectively together to kind of solve the puzzle, because there's definitely a lot of different ways to approach a problem just because of the villager tiles and what everyone's unique abilities are, and so there's never really any one perfect solution. So I like how everybody can still contribute and give their input to try to deal with certain situation. As far as cooperative games go, I would say this is probably the hardest I've ever played. It is very, very punishing. I'll talk about some other cooperative games maybe later on the list that are also very punishing, but I would say this one is the hardest. And one of my favorite memories of Ghost Stories is when I was teaching the game for the first time with 2 other players, and right there in the 3rd turn realized, oh, we lost. And it's just that quick that things can kind of run away from you, and you can lose. So it's very, very hard. I do like the customization, not only in how each unique player has their own powers, which is very nice, but also the order in which the tiles come out is, or the placement is random for the town tiles. The ghosts, as they're ordered in the deck of cards, can come out, and if you have an expansion or 2, you can filter out certain ghost cards out of the deck. Same thing for Wu Fang, he's randomized each time, so there's a lot of replayability. Really can't play the same game again, so that's really a nice replayability to the game. Really nice artwork, really good iconography. It's an Antoine Bauza game, so just like Seven Wonders, it's got that nice iconography to always know what's going on. And but even though there's multiple copies of different cards in the deck, they put unique artwork on each, and they're really good, spooky, evocative artwork on all of those cards. So I really like the artwork that's in there. The one detriment before I close up on this is that the red monk distinctly has a weaker ability than the other 3. So usually we play Ghost Stories as a 3-player game, and just we all decide what the red player is going to do, and that works out pretty well. But that is a weak point out of this game, since it is a 4 to 4 player game. But otherwise, Ghost Stories, really nice, cooperative, really hard, and yeah, I really enjoy it, and that's why it's here at number 30. Alright, number 29 is another game that has shown up already on the person's list, and that is Splendor. Splendor is a very simple game. Essentially you have 3 different actions, and you're all kind of building your own gem marketplace or merchant system. And essentially, those 3 actions, you can take these different colored gems, either 3 of different colors or 2 of the same color, and then you'll use those to buy different things to build up your merchant tile. So I'll build up a caravan or like a trade post and all these kind of things. Essentially, it is the simplest and sleekest engine building game I know. I know I talked about Machi Koro also as an engine building. This is even simpler and sleeker. So it is real simple, real quick. That's why I like it. Just a really simple game to get out and to play, and not really that complex. One big, obviously, detriment to it is that it is very luck heavy, and that strategy really can't. You can strategize a bit, but because different people are taking different cards that are out in play before you have a chance to get to them, it can be really dependent on that. So that's one detriment, but otherwise I like it because it's quick, it's easy, and it's simple, and it still has that little bit of a puzzly element to try to figure out what's the best economy and what you can kind of plan for in the future. And that is Splendor, number 29. Right, number 28. 28 is Suburbia. Suburbia is a city building game where you're building a city through all these hexagonal tiles. And the way that it works is it's an indirect auction system. So as the different tiles that come out are available, you can either pay more if they're further up on the queue, or if they're lower down the queue, you can pay less. But the problem is if somebody takes away that that structure that's lower down on the queue, then you don't have an opportunity to buy it. So it's real cutthroat with respect to that, since you can get really pigeonholed and cut off if you go down certain strategies that require certain types of building sets. For example, the restaurants or the airports. But otherwise, all of those buildings have a very cohesive ecosystem built into them. So they'll have influence on your population and your income. And that can be because it makes your people happy or less happy, or that they're actually industrial buildings like factories, heavy factories, or airports, those kind of things. And so all these different tiles will have different influence. And so as you build up your town, you'll have this ecosystem to build up the entire thing. So it's also a game that kind of grows, and you build up this system to get more money, more income, and grow up your population, which your steady state population, your cumulative population is what is giving you your victory points. So that's the part where you're actually building up the engine again to get all that to work together. So I really like that, and in that you can develop a good strategy if the right tiles come out, but of course some of the tiles are not going to be in each game, and that's where it gets a little bit luck based, which I don't like that part of it, that you could try and focus in on a certain strategy, but you won't be able to fully develop it because the tiles that you want to round out that strategy as you go through the different stages of the game don't eventually come out, and that's a bit unfortunate. But as far as the city building game goes, it's real sleek, real efficient, and really thematic as far as building up a city. So I like that. Like it's straightforward and it's simplistic, and it works really well for that kind of a drafting or I would say selecting and building, engine building kind of game. And that is why it's number 28. Number 27 is a card game that I really enjoy, and that is Seasons. Seasons is a card game where you're playing against a game of 2 to 4 players, and each of you are kind of like these spellcasters that are trying to get different kind of relics or different type of familiars out onto the playing field. And it's a victory point based game, so you're trying to do different things to get your tiered of crystals or victory points growing over time. So the first part of the game, you'll be drafting out cards for your starting hands, and also the hands of cards or the cards that you'll add to your hand once you get into the later years of the game. And just like it says, seasons, you'll be playing out 4 seasons in each round of the game to add cards to your hands, to do different actions to get those cards out. So it has a lot of the vibe of like Hearthstone or Magic, as you have this finite mana pool. You also have a finite card tableau limit that can grow over time. And it's balancing those resources as far as the elements of the 4 different seasons, as well as balancing the amount of cards that you can get out on the playing field, and making sure that you've got an engine to build that up where in the different cards that you draft out at the beginning of the game and cards that you eventually get out throughout the game are kind of dictate that strategy. So to be fair, it is a bit luck based in how you get the cards out and what you do with those cards. So that's a fair complaint against it. Otherwise, I think it has really beautiful art, and I also think it does an excellent job with the drafting system. The one caveat being that you do need to know a little bit about the mechanics and the cards that are in the game to get that benefit, but I don't think it's as deep or as heavy as like Magic or Hearthstone, where knowing the complete catalog of cards is necessary. I think it's a really easy game to just get out, get going, and to get that same itch, scratch that same itch as like a Magic, with the strategies and the card combinations that you get out. And that is why I like Seasons number 27. Alright, number 26 is a game by the late and great Sid Sackson, and that is Sleuth. Sleuth is a deduction game, much like Clue, where you are an inspector and you're trying to find out which set of gems is missing from this museum. And in a strange set of circumstances, you're all inspectors, but you all have certain information that you can share, but are not sharing with the fellow inspectors. And you're throughout the game, just like you are in Clue, you're trying to inquire on the other inspectors to find out what information they know, or rather cards that they have, and what is missing. So in the game, essentially it's two decks of cards. One's with different combinations of gems, so it's types of gems, count, so 1, 2, 3, or color, so yellow, green, blue, red. And based on those 3 combination of factors, you're trying to narrow down which set of gems is missing. Now, unlike a game like Clue, where you're asking just a simple, do you have this, or I'll make this accusation, and do you have any of these sets of circumstances? You have a set hand of cards that are in front of you, usually 4, and they are either 1 or 2 criteria. So you can either ask somebody 1 criteria, like, okay, how many pearls do you have, and they have to give you a count, or if it's how many red colored cards you have, they give you a count. But if it's 2 criteria, for example, how many red pearls do you have, they have to show you those cards. And so it's a very simple deduction game, very much like Clue. But I like it because it's a little bit more straightforward, but it's a little bit more tactful because of the cards that you have to get out there. So as far as deduction goes, it's a very, very slick and clean and quick, which is nice. You don't have to mess around with the rolling and moving like in Clue. Very, very straightforward. And because you only have those certain cards, you can focus in on those specific questions that you can ask and who you're going to ask them to kind of get the most information that will benefit you. And like all the deduction games, you get a certain amount of information and suddenly you realize, oh, I also know this because of these cards or because of these questions asked. So it's got that whole element of deduction built into it that is really nice. And as far as the art goes, very simple. Kind of see, it's pretty much like this, that it's simplistic art as far as the gems and the counts and the colors go. Nothing fancy there, but very, very functional and very straightforward. That's Sleuth. Number 25 is a recent game that I started playing probably, less than a year ago, and I really enjoy it for its unique mechanisms, including its drawing elements, and that is Duplic. Duplicate is a game where one player plays an art director, and they're looking at some really unique cartoon image, and the other players are the different artists, and they are trying to draw, that is just based on description, what the art director tells them as accurately as possible within a limited amount of time. After the time's up, there are, I think, 8 to 10 questions that get asked to all of the artists, and if they filled off that criteria, like for example, X amount of, 2 or 3 of these items are visible in the window, or this item is above this in the picture that's been drawn, or this is present, or this is not present. It goes through all this different criteria, and depending on how much criteria the artists get, they'll get a certain number of points. So pretty much it's as simple as that. Of course I love it because it's a drawing game. It's a fun game to get out for a lot of people, although I have to say the funnest part is being the art director and trying to describe these really, really weird, cartoony, like Sunday comics kind of artistic renditions that have no logical sense to them. You've got these little robot dogs in like an operating room, and all these different things. So it's really weird art, but it's very simplistic, and like I said, right in that Sunday comics style. And I do like that it's drawing, and it's quick drawing, that you have to get out very quickly, very much like Pictomania. I like how it's quick and you just keep going. And even after the fact, because you're trying to draw everything so quickly, one of the best parts is just going back and looking what everyone drew based on the same description, because the way that one person interprets it can be completely different from what another person interprets. So I like that indirect collaboration that everyone kind of has at the end to say, oh wow, I saw it this way, you saw it that way, and to see what everybody came out with. And the fun thing too is, no matter how good of an artist you are or bad, and in the end, that criteria is really what will get you the points. And if you drew it, even though it didn't look very good, you'll still get those points. So I like how it's kind of balanced, and it's not too punishing for what it is. Or if it is, it's usually punishing to everybody. So it's a really balanced game. So that's why I like it. Really fun, really easy party game. And that's number 25, Duplicate. Alright, number 24 is another deduction game that I started playing just rather recently, and that is Kryptos. Kryptos is a game where you are all code crackers, and you're trying to crack each other's codes. So this, I believe it goes up to 6. Yeah, 3 to 6 players. And you all have these cards that are laid out that show you numbers, colors, or symbols, depending on if you're colorblind or not, or want to use that. And you are trying to, once the cards you have in front of you are all placed so that they're in numerical order, you'll flip over certain cards in the sequence. And then as the players are trying to guess, you'll get essentially one free opportunity, and then the second opportunity to guess a certain card. And you have to specifically say this position and this number is what it is, and if it is, you'll get the points. If not, then you do have the opportunity to make a second guess, which is nice because it gives a little bit of recovery, especially since most of the guesses you're trying to make are 50-50. And even though it sounds very hard to make that exact guess of where certain cards are, as you get more information from your own cards and from what other people guess and what cards get revealed on their side, it's a very nice evolving deduction game where there is a lot of information that is out on the table. In fact, the majority of the information is out on the table, and then the rest is stuff that, that you get from the cards that you have in front of you, or what the questions are asked by other people. So it's a very nice deduction game, very straightforward in that respect. But unlike a game like Sleuth, this is where you are you're using the deduction of certain information as far as the sequences goes and what people have asked. And there's a little bit of luck in it because you're making those exact guesses each round, as opposed to Sleuth, where you're gradually trying to get to a bigger guess that's coming up. So very, very straightforward, very simple components One detractor that I do have of this is because of the pointing system, it can get kind of swingy. It can especially get into a situation where it's a runaway leader, and essentially, and the end of this game is dictated on a certain point value that's reached by that leader. So based off of that, it can get to a situation where the game ends really quickly because someone keeps getting really good guesses while the rest of the people are trying to puzzle out what everyone else is doing. So that can be a bit difficult and a bit trying. But otherwise, really nice deduction game, really puzzly, really thinky, and yeah, I would say it does one of the best jobs in this kind of a deduction game. Number 23 is a game published by Stonemaier Games and published by Jamie Stegmaier. I believe he's the designer, and that is Viticulture. So Viticulture is a worker placement game where you have, I guess, your own different vineyards, and you're trying to make and sell these different mixes of wines depending on what people come to your vineyard for. So what you'll do is you'll have a certain set of workers that you start out, and they'll be getting you the grapes. They'll be putting tours on at your winery to get you a little bit more income, or they'll be trying to upgrade your existing trellises or your vineyards in different ways. Like with irrigation systems, that kind of thing. And that's split up into two phases, the morning and the afternoon, and you get different types of actions you can do in the morning versus what you can do in the afternoon. And as that kind of goes on for a certain set of rounds, you're all trying to get the greatest amount of money, as well as victory points through wines that are sold, wine that's being sold. So I like it because it does have a very strong theme tied in with the mechanics. One of the elements that happens is when you get a grape seed, you have to plant it, and then once you harvest it, then the grape matures over time, and that's literally game time that you have to wait for it to tick down round over round as it becomes either the vine grows into larger grapes or the wine matures to a longer age. And based on that can increase the value of those two. So I like that it has that really strong element of the progression of time. The really good equivalent or comparable one to this is Caverna and Agricola, where they have a population of either sheep or boars or cows that if you have multiples, they'll reproduce. And same thing for the plants, as the plants are on the vines, like the wheat or the pumpkins in the case of Agricola and Caverna, but obviously here we're talking about grapes. As they grow in the vine, they'll mature or they'll keep growing. So that progression of time, that is game time. I like that element that it comes through. Otherwise, for this worker placement game, I like the two phases and how you have different functions and different things you have to think about in both phases, and what kind of actions you're going to take. One of the other elements that's really strong in this game, and that's in a lot of other worker placement games, is your bidding for turn order. And this is a really good job of it because it gives specific benefits depending on the turn order spots that you pick out. So sometimes the benefit outweighs the worker placement order that you get. Otherwise, you're trying to manage those resources, you're trying to manage your grapes, you're trying to manage how much vineyards you have, you're trying to manage your money, you're trying to manage your upgrades. So it's a lot of different things that are going on. Another thing that's very common in this, that's very common in other worker placement games, as plus or minus victory points, so you can go negative, you can go into debt to try to recover on later rounds. So Viticulture, really like it, really solid game for worker placement, for this kind of, I would call it agricultural building game. So that's why I really like it, and that's why it's number 23. Number 22, I think, is the first Ignacy Trzewiczek game from Portal Games, and this is the civilization building game that Ignacy designed, and that is Imperial Settlers. So Imperial Settlers, each of the players is commanding a different civilization, so it could be the Romans, barbarians, the Egyptians, the Japanese or Atlanteans or the Aztecs. So it's a little bit abstract, and you can kind of see from the art style it's a little bit cartoony. So that's one of the benefits, is it does have kind of that cartoony art style, but it's still really a deep game. So you're going through a card management system, including drafting, that selects out the different cards that will be the different kinds of buildings. You have faction-specific buildings, which really customize your civilization compared to everybody else, and can tailor and change your strategy. And then you have these common buildings, which also help to influence and change out your strategy. So as you're doing that, it's just like other civilization games where you have a production phase that gives you all the resources that you're generating, and then you'll use those to take certain actions to get victory points, or to trade into other resources, or then to perform specific kind of actions, some of which are very specific to your own civilizations. So one of the things I do like about Imperial Settlers is you do have very, very customized civilizations. Even if you play the game once as one civilization, jumping into it again, playing a different civilization, you can have a completely different perspective. So I really like that about this game, and that you can get that different perspective from all the different plays. Otherwise, it's very good looking, and for the most part, it's pretty straightforward as far as how it plays out. It's very logical progression as far as the mechanics go, what you'd be doing with the resources, how they react, and what you're trying to build up. Relatively quick, good art, good card combinations. As far as the common buildings that everyone shares and the unique faction-specific buildings, they're great combinations. Not only you can build with your own faction buildings, but also that you can build with the common cards. And so I get that kind of same feeling I get from Season and other kind of card-playing games, that you can get these combinations that work together, that really get this great ecosystem and this great civilization kind of pumping. So I feel like it does a very good job at that. It also, for the most part, has limited interaction, but there is aspects where you have very strong interactions, like you do have a military element where you can raise another person's building, and I think that's the right balance. I think it has a very good balance between that interaction and what you're doing on your own civilization to build it up and kind of grow your own economy. So I like that level of interaction, and I like the kind of strategy that comes out from this kind of game. So that is Imperial Settlers. Number 21 is probably the most unusual for my top 50. It is one of the oldest games that I ever played. It is also the one that is most unlike the rest. And it's also a game I don't play very regularly anymore, and don't have access to readily, and that is Three Dragon Ante. So Three Dragon Ante is a poker style game. Essentially, you are putting out a certain bid each round, and then you're trying to see how, if you can get the best hand of cards that come out, essentially the most power, to win the round over. And it's as simple as that. Now, a strong equivalent to that is Lords of Scotland, but unfortunately Lords of Scotland does not do what Three Dragon Ante does quite as well. And so it's not on the list. In this case, it's Three Dragon Ante. But in addition to all those just very straightforward poker style or Lords of Scotland style mechanics, it has that magic element, that little twist of card management on top of it, that kind of gives it that little extra spice that I like, and that's the reason it's on here. So I like it pretty much as a gambling game. I really don't like gambling games for the most part, but when it's done in the right context like it is here, I think it comes out as really well fleshed out and thrown through, so I do like that. I do also like the card management system, similar to Lords of Scotland, where you can kind of plan for big turns ahead, and hopefully the luck of the cards, which again is a failing point in all these kinds of games, doesn't burn you too hard. So that is a limitation, but hopefully that's something that doesn't keep recurring, and that doesn't set the tone of the game, because there is a bit of strategy to have in here. Otherwise, it's pretty simple art, very straightforward, simple mechanics, and as far as what I'll call a gambling style or kind of a poker style game, I find it's real simple, real straightforward, really great for it, and so that's why I like Three Dragon Ante, and that's why it's number 21. Alright, so that was the middle stretch. Starting to get to a lot of deduction games, as well as getting really into those nuts and bolts engine building games. So yeah, I hope you like the list, and yeah, I hope you come back soon. Thanks.